Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Tuesday evening Ask the Doc call. If this is your first time coming, I just want to say welcome. I'm so excited about what you're going to learn tonight. You know, most of us have learned to deal with health challenges by looking at and trying to mitigate the symptoms, right? It's what we've been taught, which is very helpful, but it rarely addresses the root cause of whatever the issue is. And redox is changing all of that. It's changing, in fact, the entire paradigm of wellness and vitality. If redox is a new term for you, you're in wonderful company. It was for all of us until somebody who cared about us told us about it, and we started to learn in events like tonight. But just know that redox is the energy that powers all life. Literally nothing happens in my body, your body, even your pet's bodies without a redox reaction. They are the language of the cells. They are how your body communicates. So it's like this amazing communication network that not only helps your body protect healthy cells, but also helps the body detect, repair, and replace any cells that are damaged anywhere in the body. So tonight we're going to explore not only what is redox, but also why would it be of interest to you? And talk a little bit about the people behind this breakthrough, because I think, as we'll talk about later, I think that's just as important if it's something you're going to try, to know who's behind this breakthrough. People come to look at this for a lot of reasons. You know, you might find yourself in a number of these different reasons. Some of you are here because you have a health challenge, or maybe you love someone, somebody in your life has a health challenge, and you're trying to see if this could be part of the solution. Others of you like to be proactive with your health, you know, stop things before they can rise above the surface and become symptomatic. Because most of us, I think, as we move through life, have realized that it's easier to maintain our health than it is to regain it once we've lost it. And so, you know, some of us are here tonight because we're trying to figure out how can we do that. Some of you are here tonight because you're athletic. You know, you might not be an Olympic athlete or a professional athlete, but you might enjoy, you know, pickleball or going on walks, bike riding, hikes, whatever it is. And there are athletic benefits to it that we're going to go over. You know, we don't have to be a world-class athlete to want faster recovery, more endurance, right? Even if it's just having energy at the end of the day to do the things that we want to do instead of the things we have to do. So we'll talk about that a little bit tonight as well. And then many people are here because there is an anti-aging aspect to redox molecules. And while many people think about anti-aging as, you know, what we see in the mirror, right? The wrinkles, the hair color changing, all those kinds of things. There's a lot that happens beneath the surface inside the body. And Dr. Hoffman's always reminding us, you know, the wrinkles on the outside are a reflection of the wrinkles and the oxidative stress that are happening inside us, you know, at a cellular level, at our tissues, our organs. So what if there was a way that we could interrupt the breakdown of aging? We're going to talk about that. And then the final reason that people look at this is because when you have a breakthrough of this magnitude that literally impacts every person on the planet and every pet on the planet, there's an opportunity. You know, there is an opportunity to make an impact in the world beyond the one you've already made in your lifetime. It's important to know that I believe this is a true gift. And whether that impact you make is with family members you might think of while we go through this presentation, or if it's something that, you know, you want to link arms with like-minded people and really make a living while making a difference. If that resonates with you, we don't have time on Tuesdays to really dive into that aspect of this. We talk a little bit about it, but on Saturday mornings on the same Zoom, same password, Dr. David Silverman and Danielle Matthews dive into what it is like to help educate and share this product around the world. So if that's of interest, that's at 10:30 East Coast time on Saturdays. But right now, just a reminder, this is called Ask the Doc. Any questions you have as Dr. Hoffman goes through her presentation, please put them in the chat. And at the end, we'll go through those and get those answered. But just remember that it's important to know that this is not a drug. And so because the company chose the path of distribution that it chose, our hands are kind of tied with FDA regulations in that we can never make any claims that this cures, treats, prevents any kind of disease or condition. So we can't address specific disease names and condition names. So maybe phrase your question perhaps with, symptoms you're experiencing or functions that have been impacted. And that way, Dr. Hoffman can better answer your questions without, while we stay compliant, because we want to make sure that this technology is available now and decades from now. We don't want to get in trouble with the FDA. So I just wanted to say that because I don't want people to think we're avoiding your questions. We just really have to be compliant. But it's my privilege always and a pleasure to introduce Dr. Carolyn Hoffman. We have known each other now, I think almost 8 years. We're always trying to figure out how many years we've been doing this Tuesday night together. But she is a traditional naturopath, board certified. She's been doing that for more than 23 years. She is also a member of the medical professional board for this company. That's a volunteer position. But as I say almost every week, what I love about Dr. Hoffman is she's not only got, the amazing clinical background and that breadth of knowledge, but she's also, because she's on the medical board, she gets to kind of look behind the curtain, right? And really understands at a much greater depth how profound redox is, and even more specifically, the products that have evolved out of all the science and the research. And she's so eloquent about putting it in terms and analogies that we can all understand. So Carolyn, I am going to turn this over to you.
Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate it as always. Let's swap our pins over there. Yeah, we have been doing this for a while. I'm not certain how many years it is, but it is a privilege. And I often say each week that I welcome you if you're taking the time to learn about this, because when someone shared it with me in 2011, I kind of dismissed it. And it was another 6 years before I got to really learn about the power of what we're sharing here. So I hope that by the time we're finished, I can have conveyed for you what I believe is that regardless of whether you're here with a challenge that you're hoping to overcome, or whether you're wanting to move into the really most powerful place that we can be, which is prevention. So may we never know what we prevented. I think that's the most powerful statement. I hope that you will come to see that this is just as important as all of the things that you're probably doing to help maintain health in your life, because this is the foundation of how our cells communicate. So as Lynn so eloquently put it, nothing else happens in the body without a redox reaction. So I'm going to just share my screen, because I know we all learn differently and I think it's always good. Whoops, let's go this way. So when I was looking at this in 2016 and trying to struggle around, was this something I needed in my practice? How different was this from vitamins and minerals and all the other things that I was using over the 25 years? I delved into the book and I started to try to wrap my brain around this huge area of biology and chemistry. And the one thing that hit me was, I wonder if this is the missing link. And if you're on the call today, I'm sure you're probably not dissimilar from the people that I work with in my clinic, or even myself. How many of us have got stacks and stacks and stacks of vitamins and minerals and bottles and pills and potions, and yet somehow we're always still struggling for, I wonder what else is there out there that can maybe help us get through this barrier where we're not quite reaching the goals that we'd love to reach in our health. And that thought led me to actually come to understand that, yes, this is the missing link. So if you're doing a lot of other things, the great piece is this is going to help your body utilize whatever else you're choosing to do in a much more efficient form. And probably the long haul result of that, if you embrace rebuilding your redox potential, is that you're going to need fewer and fewer of those others, pills and potions and tablets and capsules, because your body's actually better able to utilize what you're giving it and actually do something more effective with it. So that's been my personal experience, that where I would have dozens and dozens of supplements that would be part of my daily regimen, the same for my clients, that we really found that we really didn't need those, and our health elevated greatly. So we're going to talk about why it's that missing link as we go. I want to begin by actually discussing what it isn't, because I think that's always an important piece. And so this is not a vitamin, and it's not an oil, it's not a juice, it's not a fancy water either, because there are a lot of energized waters out there that are becoming very fashionable. It is none of those things. It is pure signaling that we're discussing this evening. And it is how our cells are going to recognize it instantly, which enables it to kind of plug it in like a charger into a drain battery. battery of our cells. Now, one of the things that it does create is it helps our body to make the most powerful antioxidants that we have, which are the endogenous ones that come within our cell. So we want to think about the fact that individual symptoms are really kind of what we think of when we're using physical supplements. Something for the cardiovascular system, something for the liver, something for the adrenals, for example. And so this is kind of rather like playing a single note on a piano. But one of the challenges of this antioxidant paradox and supplement paradox is that scientifically, we've known for many, many years that when we overload the body with supplements, the cells actually lose their capacity to self-regulate. And what does that mean? What it means is that, we can overdose even on something that is totally natural. And now we may not feel the same end result as overdosing with a drug, but at a cellular level, if we're giving our body too many nutrients that it hasn't got the energy to use, this actually doesn't allow it to engage this thermostatic control at a cellular level and use these redox sensitive switches to say, you know what, thanks very much. You gave me 4 capsules. I really only needed 2, and I can just get rid of what I don't need. The body will still continue to be impacted. So it's part of the reason why more isn't always better, and certainly lots and lots of supplements don't always guarantee good health. Now, our body is really made up of a 70 to 100 trillion cells. I like this visual because really what goes on below the surface is the same as the human body. In those 70 to 100 trillion cells, this is where health or dysfunction is taking place. So our body isn't actually breaking down just because we're getting old. It's breaking down because the very thing that keeps our cells running, the thing that combats inflammation and combats and fights disease, is this redox signaling. And we're beginning to run out of it as we get older. The end result is that all of this dysfunction that we can't always see and feel until it becomes a major problem and pops up above the surface is the thing that begins to have a title to it. And then, of course, people want us on drugs or intervention that most of us really don't want to stay on. So how do we know that the body's running out of redox as we get older? Well, science has proved that actually this is something that begins in puberty. It's as early as 10 years old. So by 15, we've already actually lost 5% of our capacity. Now, at 15, you're not really going to feel that. I don't think that people are thinking that aging is happening from 10, but it is. The clock is ticking. And so we lose 1% of these signals every single year. Now, with a 10% drop per decade, there's a couple of things that happen. By the time we hit our 40s and 50s, the signal has really weakened dramatically. And so we would, if we're really paying attention, notice that we have slower recovery by that time. And that slower recovery causes a increase of inflammation, and that is what begins to really degenerate our energy levels. And so, we are going to notice that there are things that have changed by the time we're 40 and 50. We're not as fast to recover. We don't, heal as quickly as we do when we're in our teens and 20s, but this is something that science knows to be the truth. So I like to think of redox signaling molecules as like the Wi-Fi for our body, right? It's that invisible network that is going to connect our cells. And what that does is it allows the body to detect when there are damaged cells, to be able to allocate and find where those are and repair and replace them, restore balance. That's the healing that we all understand is innately within us, and maintain important things such as genetic expression and also DNA replication. Those are all major things that other things do not do. So if we have poor Wi-Fi, obviously our devices like our cell phones and all of those things can't communicate properly. So, low redox potential is like our cells can't talk, right? Poor Wi-Fi. And so when cellular communication breaks down, what we're going to feel is really very much like a shadow of who we might have been when we had a 5-bar energy going on. We're surviving as we get older rather than thriving as we did when we were young. Now, as we look at this family, we can literally see that as you age, The stress and the toxins begin to kind of scramble these signals. Repairs happen more slowly. You'll look at the changes in the skin. As Lynn says, I'm always saying that those wrinkles on the outside are a reflection of the changes that are taking place on the inside. And so maybe not all of us, but aging is definitely on the inside, and it does pop up and it comes up on the outside. So we know that this is happening. Now, redox signaling molecules really activate what we think of as the entire keyboard of cellular health. And they're enabling full cellular function to take place, really supporting that network communication and the way that our body was designed to work. Now, as Lynn said, nothing in the body is going to happen without a redox signal creating an instruction. So that's how foundational they are. This is where the root of all of our cellular health and healing is going to take place. And unlike physical supplements that you have to take in, swallow, digest, absorb, and assimilate out to the cells, redox signaling molecules actually allow redox sensitive switches to determine how much the body needs to use when we're giving it to it. So there's no potential for you drinking too much and flooding the body with something that's overstimulating it. And that's what's really unique. Now, let's talk a little bit about science, because as Lynn said, most of us come to this topic where we really haven't heard the word redox before. And yet, if we actually look at it, there are 6 Nobel Prizes in this field, and science as a whole has been delving in deeper and deeper and deeper since 1998. This is the area where health science is going. They're all trying to create drugs out of it because it's been studied for decades and it's the critical force behind literally every single function of the human body. So without them, our cells are not communicating, our immune system doesn't respond, and our energy begins to fizzle out. And here is just a very small example of the worldwide interest in redox biology and medicine. Now, in fact, there was a groundbreaking 2016 study in the Free Radical Biology and Medicine journal, and it confirmed why I say this is as important as all the other things that you're going to do, like drinking good water, eating good food, exercising, sleeping, breathing, all of those things. It's just as important. And this study confirmed for us that redox, as we've discussed, changes with aging. But it is literally redox homeostasis, the balance and the ability for the cells to signal when there's a problem and respond equally, is literally essential for health. One of the other things is that the older we get and the more out of balance we are, this study said that we will see more disease as a result of it. And that is because our redox signal is disrupted, inflammation spikes, healing slows down, and then disease begins to take root. Now, I love this piece because, as Lynn said, we'll talk more in depth about this momentary and very pivotal connection between 25 years of research where these molecules were made accidentally, but nobody really understood what it was that they had done. And where Verdis Norton, as a retired chief strategist for Kraft Foods, was consulting with that same research company. They'd been working for 15 years to crack the code of this complex saltwater-based technology. And people don't understand that we can make something so amazing from salt water. And yet, really, when we think about it, if we're really logical about it, it does make sense because we are saltwater beings. We are made of saline. That's what we get when we get into hospital. That's what our cells are made of. And that's what the cells use to make these mitochondrial ATP signaling messengers. His vision led to a breakthrough that enabled us to stabilize bioavailable redox signaling molecules and bring it to market. This was something that science said just wasn't possible, and it became possible thanks to his connection with this initial research. So what we're talking about here is something that was created inadvertently 25 years ago, has been on the market for over 15 years in its stabilized form. And so it's not the next best thing. But it is the first and only way that we can restore our own natural supply. So there is no other company on the market that has managed to do the scientific breakthrough of stabilization. We'll talk more about a decision that he had to make that has led us to the philosophy and the ethos behind this company and where we're at. But if you'd like to see the full story, I would go to discoverredox.com and listen to the Genesis story. It's very powerful. Now, if we think of our body as really like a high performance car, right? The energy is the engine. Nutrition could be the fuel that we put in that engine. But without oil, really everything gets hot and it's going to burn out and it's not going to work. And in the body, that is inflammation. But without an electrical spark, that car is not going to work. And so redox is the spark and the electrical network of the human body. And so just like that car, if we don't have that spark and that electrical charge and energy, we're not going to function either. So when we replace redox signaling molecules on a daily basis, what we're doing is boosting our health, and we're really resetting that loss that started early on in our life. It's really like flipping on a switch, because those switches tell our body that you can heal again, right? That you can address the inflammation that's been building up over time, that you can solve the problem of a lack of energy because your cells now have a much higher redox potential, much higher voltage, much higher charge to do things, or that your body can resolve its problems with not being able to sleep. And here's the best part of this. Unlike even the most brilliant natural supplements in terms of herbs, which are phenomenal, I don't have a single product that, like this, is completely non-toxic. It is also non-allergenic. Why is that? Because, as Lynn mentioned at the beginning, our pets, our plants, and us are all alive or currently functioning because of redox. So it is native to the human body. It's not something that's exogenous and not understood by the human body. So when you consume it, the body knows exactly what to do with it. And probably the most unique thing, if you're on this call this evening and you're on medication, maybe you're thinking to yourself, well, but how is this going to interact with my meds? The great thing is that this is the only product that I have that I'm able to give to anybody that is transparent to medication. What does that mean? What it means is that you can safely stay on your medication. This is not going to change the impact of your medication. What we ask you to do is benchmark everything about your health, where you're at today, what bugs you, what's a problem, what's just a little annoyance. And then as you incorporate this, track the changes. Now, we're not saying that you may not need as much medication over time. If you rebuild your redox potential, it's quite likely that your body's going to say, you know what, thanks very much for walking me back 5 or 10 years. And 5 or 10 years ago, you didn't have the problem that needed that medication. And you know what? I've learned how to do what I forgot how to do. And I'm going to help you to get into a space where you don't need that medication. But those kinds of changes are the changes that you need to make with your doctor. But it is a very common story that we hear, and certainly things that I've experienced with my clients. And so the other beauty is that your pets can enjoy this product. And we do have a great Facebook group that talk all about how this benefits their pets. So here's the truth. Aging isn't optional. We know that. We're all going to go at some point. This is not, this is not going to stop us from dying. But how our age, I believe, is optional. Now, most people think of the fatigue and the wrinkles and the brain fog and the chronic pain as just part of life, and your doctor's probably going to reflect that, oh, well, you're just getting older. But really, I look at those things as our warning that our redox potential is dropping, because if it wasn't dropping, we wouldn't have those issues. And science has proven that if you can rebuild this in your system, your body is going to have the tools to fix it. So aging, I think, is not necessarily something we have to think about in terms of feeling and looking old. Yeah, we'll get older, but we don't have to let the quality of our life change. So to me, this isn't a luxury. It's not a fad. It's the foundation of where we begin. And then everything else is added on top of it, and probably nowhere near as much as whatever you're doing at the moment. And so without it, we're going to fight this uphill battle. But with it, you're going to be giving your body something it's really been screaming for, the ability to function the way it was designed to. Our body knows how to heal. I love to show this because this is Rosie's real life reverse aging journey with redox. And if you look at a picture of her at 84 on the left, you're going to see there's really no life and energy in that human being. She's fading out. That light is fading out. And at some point, she was probably going to go a lot sooner than this picture is showing. She had a lot of oxidative stress, a lot of wrinkles. 7 weeks later into using this, she showed her son, who'd introduced her to it, and she knew she kind of felt better, but she didn't think it looked any different until he showed her the photo. So we always say, take photos. But at 87, you can see all this energy and life has returned. She's looking a whole lot different. At 91, even better. Now, let's be truthful. There is, I don't believe, another product on the market that can take somebody who is 84 and looks like this, move them 7 years on and makes them look like this. Who looks younger at 90 than we did at 80? Who looks like this at 90 for the most part, right? That doesn't happen. And that's why I frequently will say this is the single most influential product technology that I've had the privilege to use. I don't have any other supplement that could simply take somebody and help their body make those changes like this. Now, how do we replicate the body's natural redox signaling process? Well, we precisely control a whole bunch of things. We start with the saline, the same saline formulation as in the human body, and we control things like voltage and amperage, pH, salinity, and temperature, and we replicate what the mitochondria is doing, which is to break apart the saline bonds and generate trillions of stabilized redox signaling molecules in a bioactive form, something that science, as I said, considered to be impossible. And so many people are familiar with our beautiful blue bottle, and this has trillions and trillions of those redox signaling molecules that are perfectly suspended, waiting to go to work on you the moment that you put it in your mouth. This is where we produce the world's only facility for stabilized redox signaling molecules. This product has 7 patents and over 7,000 trade secrets, in fact, on it. We supply the world's supply to 35 countries from this facility. And so the shipping direct to every consumer and not using third parties ensures that we have authenticity, safety, and a 30-day money-back guarantee. And so we like to make sure that you are going to get this at the same price that we're paying for it, direct from the company, because we know that you're going to have pure product. And in this day and age, unfortunately, there are many, many supplement companies out there on the market who are having a lot of trouble with 3D printing fakes, and what's inside is just not the same thing at all. So be very cautious about where you're purchasing from, but your friend is going to be able to help you get your own account in the same way that we do. This is an FDA registered NSF and GMP compliant process. I mentioned that we are the world's first and only cell signaling supplement. We've been on the market since 2009, and nobody's been able to reverse engineer what's in this bottle because it's not about nutrients. It's about energy and redox potential, and so you can't pour it out and analyze what we've done. And so we are still first to market. Every 4th batch that we have is independently tested by world-renowned redox biology labs, and that guarantees that what we're all buying is the stabilized redox signaling molecules. The beauty about this is that, we have, in the United States, we're rated in the FDA as a nutritional component product, and that's because there is no redox category even now. Now, our product is supplied across Europe, and in Europe they consider it a food. It's classified as food over there. Now, if we go further east in our Asian market, in Taiwan, for example, they consider it a water. So you can see that really the world doesn't really know yet what to do with redox. And so how they handle it is somewhat different in different places. But we meet halal, kosher, NSF, and water compliance. And as a result of that, we support and supply many Olympic athletes and professionals with this product because it is tested at Appalachian Human Performance Labs and has remarkable benefits for their performance. So for the last 15 years, ASEA has actually created redox products for internal health and mastered the stabilized science of unstable molecules and being able to use them for the anti-aging skincare. So we have 3 skin products. The Renew 28, the Renew Advanced Intense Serum is the same formulation as the Renew 28, except it's twice as concentrated, really for things like fine lines and wrinkles. And our most recent product of about last year was our Redox Clay Mask. What makes these unique is the fact that what's in this bottle is in each of them, but redox molecules need to go to work in a nanosecond, and so it took 5 years to be able to find what wouldn't activate those same redox molecules until we put it on the skin. And this is with a silica, dimethicone, and then a very special kind of bentonite. This is called Renew 28 because in 28 days, you have a 16% speed increase in skin cell turnover. In other words, it's literally taking you back in time, making you look younger. You can see we have a number of other results between 20 and 23% changes in skin smoothness and texture elasticity. And a second study that we did also on cellulite. And so it is the reason why everybody loves this, because it does amazing things for the skin. It's also been very beneficial for us for helping us with all sorts of things that were uncomfortable and causing discomfort over the years. But this year we went one step further, and we'll talk about that with a different product. Redox Clay is the power of the bentonite. So this works really to pull out a lot of toxins in the skin, really tightens the skin, smooths the skin, doesn't dry it out like a normal bentonite product, and also deeply penetrates the redox into the skin. So these are just beautiful go-tos. This is an all-over body skin therapy, though. It's not just for the face, and so we have lots of stories on the benefits of that. And here's examples of that Renew 28. You can see the changes in the looseness of the skin here from the first one to the second one, calming the face down. Even as we get older, we often get flare-ups that kind of make us feel like we're back in school. You can see here tightening up the most common area for looseness as we age, and fine lines as well. So those are all sorts of beautiful things. We soothe irritations in skin, and once you start to use this, you find that it really replaces everything over the counter, whether it's for bug bites, itching, scratches, irritation, cuts, burns, bleeding. You know, this is our go-to, and kids absolutely love it. Now, I want to show you that, as I mentioned, we worked originally with this for discomfort, and this was the way I evaluated the product. I was actually looking at it with the way that we would do it for testing for discomfort. And those were the kinds of examples that I saw that really made me realize that this was something I needed to investigate further. Because if I could see these changes in under 10 minutes with this, then there was something powerful and beneficial. And those were all levels of discomfort and the speed at which people saw changes. So I love to use the topical because it does help us begin to build our own confidence with what this is, but we're going to show you a different way to do it. So here we have the studies that we've done. We are the first to market. And as a result, we've had to actually put hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars into research so that we could learn about our own technology and what it could do for health as a whole. And it's helped us really partner with places like Western Australia over the last 4 years to be able to develop new applications. They've helped us, these places have helped us understand the significance of what our product can do, and helped us look at how we can broaden the field of redox technology. If you'd like to look at more on those, take a look at discoverredox.com. ASEA created the market category, and as I said, we put in millions of dollars of studies. And I want to talk about one really groundbreaking double-blind placebo-controlled genetic study. What we had here was a test group of healthy 35-year-olds that when we analyzed their genetic signaling, it had actually already begun to downregulate. But that group were put on 8 ounces of ASEA for 8 weeks. The placebo group were put on the same saline that we use before it gets transformed into redox signaling molecules, and then there was the control group. What is really unique, and I think incredibly significant, is that 100% of the people who were drinking the 8 ounces of redox per day had a 20 to 31% sustained and beneficial improvement in 5 genetic pathways. 100%. So if you're kind of sitting there and thinking, well, I wonder what this could do for me, well, unless you're not part of the human race, this is what it's going to do for you. Because if it did it for 100% of those people, we aren't different in that respect. And we're doing more work that's really proving this for us. So what does that mean for our health? You know, whether we've got a health challenge or not, we all need a very strong immune system. We need good cardiovascular health and strong arterial elasticity. We need good gut health and digestive enzyme because the gut rules the brain and really rules the hormone signaling as well. We need to be able to modulate hormone balance, support vitality and wellness. We also need a really important feature is to support the body's ability to respond to external stresses. That could be viruses, bacteria, toxins, environmental, it could be emotional, it could be physical. Whatever stresses the system, you want the body to be able to respond and then mount a defense to restore balance again. So that's going to make the difference between whether you can resist those bugs and viruses and bacteria, or whether you're like somebody that you might know who's constantly susceptible to all those things. This is a clue. And if your redox potential is low, you're not going to have that stress resilience. And lastly, but not least, is the ability to maintain a healthy response to inflammation. Now, when it says due to physical exercise, because that's just part of the way they phrase these studies, this is not about being an athlete, right? Just simply living is physical exercise. You're producing oxidative stress, which creates inflammation just simply by breathing and being around. So that's an important factor. We want this to be under control. And that EGR1, that inflammatory gene pathway, showed us something really interesting in 2017. Pathway number 4 activates the signal response within our cells. In other words, when there is damage, this is the signaling messenger that sends out the 911 call to the immune system to respond with internal antioxidants, glutathione, superoxide dismutase, catalase. Those are the response mechanism. This is the fire and rescue response within our cells that helps us deal with inflammation as it's occurring. Now, when that's not working, this is why inflammation gets out of control, and then we have a lot of other problems. But if we have a good, healthy inflammatory signaling pathway, you're going to notice I put in there a bunch of things in blue, and that is to just show you the impact to the body if those pathways are not working correctly. So one door in a gene pathway is going to open and influence and signal to many, many pathways, and those are the 15 within this. And that pathway, that NRF2, was what prompted us to spend the last 4 years, thanks to Western Australia, showing us how, if we took molecular gold and restructured the species of redox within our product, we could actually hone in and really kind of laser therapy the impact for relief and recovery. So in other words, if you've got something that's hurting you, it's not moving as well as it should, you're very sore, you don't recover from exercise well, this is the product for you, because in a very rapid time, it is going to attack and activate your body's response to inflammation through that NRF pathway and activate and increase your body's ability to produce more antioxidants to combat that. So this is a beautiful product that's doing so well since last January. So how do we know? Well, what we're going to do is if you know, your body may take a month or two to reveal internal changes, but the great thing is with this, you can actually get a really fast idea of what your body likes to do when you give it more redox, whether that's topical or internal. And so if you've got something that hurts, make sure that you play around with this and ask the person who invited you here to see what that's like. Here are the studies that showed us what we were producing. Here is the baseline production of a response. In other words, if a cell has a lot of inflammation in it, how well is it activating that signal to say, signal danger, I've got a problem here in this cell. Well, what we did with one application of the Redox Gold, we increased this response by 160%. So think of that as a 160% increase in your body's response to combating cell danger through oxidation. That's enormous. Right? That's absolutely huge. Now, we also know that when we activate that, we produce more glutathione. That's that master antioxidant. And it's demonstrated that if we had a healthy cell producing glutathione, what happened with one application of the redox? And we had a 70% increase in glutathione. But they went one step further and they said, well, you know, what happens if we're actually putting this on unhealthy cells? In other words, cells that are already dying off, they're really compromised, they're really unable to produce much glutathione at all. So they replicated that with cell death and at a 2% function. When we put on one application, this became a 280% increase. That is phenomenal. We went one stage further and we looked at thermographic studies across 100% response rate of really seeing the difference between the heat patterns that come from the body and then one application, again, targeting that EGR1, that NRF2, and supporting rapid relief, but with long-term healing with repeated use. In other words, not just an analgesic. Now, if you want the athletic edge, imagine accessing the same game-changing advantage that these athletes put their trust in ASEA. We have, from our studies, we know a 29% boost in endurance and recovery, sharper mental focus, much more acuity, faster performance times. And, you know, as Lynn said, you don't have to be an Olympic athlete. You don't even have to be a weekend warrior to want to be able to use 29% more energy and sharper mental acuity. What could that translate to in your life? Lynn gave you lots of examples, being able maybe to play pickleball, perhaps getting back and playing with your friends in basketball, playing tennis, just having more energy left in your day than you currently have. So that instead of having more hours in the day and not enough energy to go with it, you can power on through and accomplish a lot more things that you want to do. We have lots of information on these athletes, and go to discoverredox.com. If you look at the intro page and search for Sean Burke, if you click on that, it's going to take you to a lot of examples of what these athletes see and why they love this product. Now, here's my challenge. I want people to think about, don't let your cells sabotage you for another day. Okay? And a lot of people tend to think when they take this product, well, how can one product make so many different changes? If you look at the examples of stories that people post and interviews that we have for 15 years, and we've been doing 15 years of study, you know, we've really been in a clinical trial for 15 years of people all around the world using this. No side effects whatsoever, but only amazing outcomes. And if we ask ourselves, well, how can we see so many varied experiences, right? Like breathing, right? Like autoimmune challenges. And these are all people that I've worked with, like skin issues, hair and hormones, mobility and energy. What draws those and connects them is the fact that each one is just an example that there are damaged cells in the lungs, or there are damaged cells in the immune system, or there are damaged cells in the skin system for the body. Right? And if we can rebuild that redox and we can help kind of turn things back, we're really allowing the body to activate its innate capacity to heal. And so that's the reason why we have one thing which is so powerful for so many challenges, because it's not about the names of those things. It's simply that cells, or dysfunctional cells, are the common factor. The realistic healing, right? Our symptoms didn't come in a month or even 2 or 3 or 4 a lot of the times. So really we need to think about building the foundation in the first month, stabilizing that improvement, watching the momentum in the 3rd month, and really optimizing in the 4th month and beyond. Most people kind of quit a lot earlier than they should do. And I think it's not just about ASEA. I think people come to nutritional programs or natural health and they really just want this quick fix, but they're not being realistic about the fact that it's the body that's making the healing happen. And whatever you're using, you're facilitating that. And the body didn't get to the state we were in overnight, and it doesn't heal overnight. So there are 2 variables in how we can use this product. right? Our product is going to really affect kind of every single department. But your body, as Lynn mentioned, is going to determine the priority. So we can access all systems, but our innate intelligence is going to choose where it directs it. And it's only the master key that can kind of unlock your body's full potential. So what we like you to do, whoops, I'm going to go back on this, is take 4 ounces to start with, track your changes, watch what's happening. We know that 15% of people will see something in the first week, 50% of people in the first month. But the biggest changes, because of that last slide that I showed you, are going to be 90% of people really excited about what's happening by the time they've got to the third month, because they've overturned so many more new cells and they've really upregulated the body's own ability to heal. And that's the powerful piece. If you'd like to know more about what redox is doing naturally within your body and connect to studies, this is a great place if you'd like to understand more about redox biology as a whole. If you are like me and I like to see the empirical examples of what happens, not just the science studies, Real Redox Results is a Facebook group where people choose to put their own experiences, and this is one of the places we can go to for ongoing interviews with people. And that's a great place. We're going to talk about the ethos. So I'm going to pass this back to Lynn, because the ethos that she and I talk about is equally as important in many ways as the product, because without this decision that Vertis was faced with, this product wouldn't be here for us. I'm going to pass it back to you, Lynn.
And it was, it was a decision that, as I talk about this, I want you to think about what decision you might have made in his position. Vertus Norton was truly a visionary. He was a strategist. He did a lot of consulting in Fortune 50 companies. When he came across and got access to this technology, to him, it was just a business play. He had retired, and he thought that he could sell it to a pharmaceutical company. So while he was talking with different pharmaceutical companies, he got 40 people on the product. These were, friends, neighbors, church members, people who had varying levels of health challenges. Six of those 40, their challenges were so severe that they had basically been told to get their affairs in order. And these people had unlimited access to however much they wanted to drink. So while they were doing that in the background, he was talking to different pharmaceutical companies, and one of them was very intrigued. They sent out their top scientists, their top, C-suite executives, and were very, very impressed with what he had. Impressed enough to make him an offer, tens of millions of dollars. But there was a caveat, and the caveat was that that focus group that he had testing the product, all of them had to come off of it. He had to come off of it. His family had to come off it. And basically they said, look, this is, not going to be available anymore. If you want this check, you need to walk away. Well, those 40 people, he had been checking in on them periodically. And after a couple months of them having access to the technology, many of them were thriving. In fact, the six people who had been told to get their affairs in order seemed to be thriving. And so he said to the pharmaceutical company, ethically, morally, I can't take this away from them. And they said, well, you need to make a decision, right? You either take the money or don't, and he decided not to take the money. He turned down legacy money because he truly believed that this needed to be in the hands of people like you and me and a lot of people on this call. And he knew he really wanted this to be his gift to humanity, his legacy for humanity. And so he turned down that offer and he started this company that we all know as Avacia. And he was trying to figure out, what is the best way to bring this to market? Because especially 15 years ago, nobody knew what redox was, or many people did not. Certainly most of lay people did not. And when people look at the label, which we're all trained to do, it just says, sodium chloride in water, which is saline, salt water. So if it was on the shelf somewhere, most of us would look at it and just put it right back on the shelf. So he realized very quickly that this needed education and that word of mouth marketing or network marketing would be the best way to get it to market, because you can have educational events like tonight. You can talk to people who have had an experience with it and want to share it with others. And so he chose that path, knowing that that industry as a whole often had, a less than stellar reputation. But the culture that he wanted to instill in it. He wanted this to not only be his gift to humanity, but he wanted to make sure that people were always put first, right? And that people and principles and purpose would always be valued higher than ego and economics. Because this is a privately held company, there's no stockholders or shareholders, I should say, that the company is beholden to. You know, a lot of companies, unfortunately, it's all about profit, and so often the benefit to people is overlooked for that almighty dollar, if you will. And I think it's really, for me, it's so heartwarming to know that there are companies out there like ASEA where people come first. Um, this is a company that values people over profits. They encourage cultivating relationships, not just making transactions. And the company truly believes that being of service to others and doing what's best for that person is more important than simply selling somebody Redox. And so when I met the company and met the founders, it resonated at such a deep level that I wanted to be part of this. And if this is something that resonates with you, the products are unbelievable and like nothing else. I mean, I will always, always take these products. If I had to give up everything but one thing, this would be the one thing I kept. Um, and I don't need to be doing this on Tuesday nights or out there sharing it, but the integrity of this company and the ethos and this idea of being around like-minded people who are very passionate about sharing this while having fun has just been a wonderful 12-year journey for me. And if that's something that resonates with you either tonight, because you've already tried it and you already know how profound the products are, or after you get an experience, or if you've been thinking of people, as Dr. Hoffman has talked about, the different things that this can help in the body, this is a true gift for humanity. And I would really encourage you not to keep this knowledge to yourself. Even if it's just, like I said earlier, a couple family members you've thought of who you want them to know that this could help them, bring them next week, bring them on Saturday, have your friend talk to them. Or if it's something that you want to jump in and make it, something bigger, there is a place here for all of you. And it creates such a community and deep friendships when you are part of this. So I always appreciate on Tuesday night getting a few minutes to talk about the culture and the ethos because we don't get to talk about that very much. But whether you're just going to be a consumer of the product or do have a business hat on and are looking at it with that perspective, I think it's very important to know about the integrity behind this company. And so, Carolyn, I saw lots of questions. So I'm going to turn it back over to you so we have time to answer them before the top of the hour.
Yes, I know. Let's just stop the recording.